Hey, what's up? I got another quick E34 video for you guys, and today we're gonna be replacing these bad boys. Now, as you can see, these are long past their expiration date. They're actually cracked, and you can see water's been getting in and rusting out the internals, which has tinted the whole lens orange. So I'm kind of worried about what we're gonna run into when we crack this open, but that's a later problem. But yeah, almost every E34 I've seen has had cracked fog light lenses, or at least they look like what this side looks like, which is heavily pitted and rock chipped. And obviously this comes with over 200,000 miles of use on a 27-year-old car, and these are the lowest first point of contact for all kinds of rock chips and road grime, so they always end up looking like this at best. Now, the new parts I've got in here, they are actually brand new, genuine Hella parts with the part number and everything on top, so that's pretty cool. And I actually got these from a guy on Instagram. I'll leave a link to his page up in the corner here. His handle is @Bavarian Steering Wheels. This video isn't sponsored or anything. He's just hooked me up with some pretty good deals on some pretty good BMW parts. So definitely check him out if you're interested in getting stuff like this. Now, obviously these are just the lenses. This ended up being the most economical way for me to go. If you're looking for a brand new unopened fog light, that's gonna run you at least $200 a light. These ended up being $20 a piece plus shipping and handling, so definitely the way to go for me. But anyway, first things first, we got to remove the old lights. And before we jump into that, I'm actually going to use this light as demonstration for explaining a little bit better what we're going to be doing, just because visibility isn't very good under the car, so it'll be easier to show you this first. Basically, there's two screws that hold in each fog light, one here, one here. So those are your two screws. And then on the other end, there's a little ball joint, and that just pops out of the socket. So when I'm talking about the two screws, I'm talking about these two bad boys right here. When I'm talking about the ball joint, I'm talking about this little guy over on the side. And with that being said, let's go ahead and jump in. So the very first thing we're gonna do is remove this panel here. And we do that by pushing this little button on the side, and that releases it on the inside. And on mine, you kind of have to pull it a little bit, but that just comes right on down. And on this side of the car, we have the ambient temperature sensor. We are gonna have to pop that out of this little socket to be able to work up in here, because we are gonna have to reach in here and up under here and fit a ratchet up in the back. So we're just gonna pop that by pushing it backwards like that, and we will let that hang down under the car. It'll be a little bit in our way, but we can work around it. And with that done, we can see our two screws here. They actually thread in from behind, so up inside. So the head of each of those screws is up behind here. Not the most convenient thing ever, but it's definitely workable. So each of these screws is actually an 8mm, and we've got our 8mm here on a 1/4" drive. And we're just gonna do one at a time. I'm gonna start with this lower one. You kinda gotta feel around to get the ratchet started, and then that's just lefty-loosey. Alrighty, so that's that lower screw out, and this is what that screw looks like. Now we gotta get this upper one here. Again, the key is just feeling around and using our sense of touch. And that is our top one out as well. So now at this point, the only thing holding this fog light in is that ball joint that I was talking about. But before we pop that, we're actually gonna unplug the fog light itself up under here. So this is a bit difficult to see, but this is the very back end of the fog light right here. And this is our plug. We pinch these two prongs, we pull down, and that unplugs our fog light. And with that all done, we're gonna pop this ball joint out. I'm gonna do it by hand. You can fish a flathead up in there to pop it, but to get this unseated, we're gonna rotate like that. We're gonna push in a little bit, and then that should give us room to pull that, and just like that, it's already popped out for me. So mine wasn't in there too stuck, but if yours is a little more secure, fishing a flathead up in there and just going bink will do the trick as well. Now you just gotta fish that out from under the car, and voila. And so now it's time to disassemble this to get the old lens off. And all we need to do that is a Phillips screwdriver, and there are 4 Phillips screws all around this housing here. Alrighty, moment of truth. Oh yeah, that is nasty. Yeah, I don't know if this is gonna be recoverable. Luckily, I do have that spare fog light that I should be able to pull parts from. But this just shows what can happen if you neglect this. I mean, that is just rusted to nothing. That is really unfortunate. There's actually another piece in here. I don't know what this came off of, but yeah, definitely catch this earlier than I decided to. But anyway, we do need to save the bulb and this little housing back here. So in case you need to remove this, I'll just show you that real quick. So you twist this lefty-loosey. This is the housing that holds all the wiring for the bulb. We pull that out and we can see these wires here. Remove that one, then remove this one off of that peg. And then to remove the bulb, there's this little clip here. We squeeze each side in and down to unhook it, and then the bulb should come right out like that. All right, so we switched over to my spare fog light that I had. This is what yours should look like on the inside. This is silver, not orange. But anyway, and it looks like that plate that was rattling around in there is actually this cutoff plate that limits the beam of the projected light so that it shines down at the road. So there's a little fun fact for you. So we've got this off. We also need to remove the mounting bracket for the fog light off of the old lens. And to do that, it's actually just one screw right here. There are two screws over here, but we are only going to remove the lower one. The upper one is just a adjustment screw. And just like that, that just kind of falls off of there. One last piece, this rubber gasket. Don't forget to install this on your new lens. Alrighty, so now for reassembly, we've got our new lens here. We're gonna start just by laying our gasket back around the edge. And then we're gonna take our mounting bracket. There are two little prongs on this side that we gotta line up. Get those hooked in there. And back over to the other side, gotta line up that screw hole. And that's how that meshes into there. Put our screw through there. Just snug that up, doesn't need to be crazy tight. Go back over to here, make sure our gasket is seated. So now we're gonna go ahead and just put the back end of the fog light back in. Note where it says top on here, that obviously goes towards the top of the fog light. That way the beam is actually shining down towards the road rather than up into space. And just put all these screws back in. I'm gonna kind of do a crisscross pattern so that the gasket inside doesn't get wrinkled or anything. Again, we're just snugging these up, basically just tightening them until they bottom out, and it looks like we are all done. So last thing I would recommend doing, especially if your fog light was a little more compromised like mine was and water was able to get in, is I would recommend cleaning everywhere where there's an electrical contact with some electronics cleaner and or isopropyl alcohol, including the plug here on both the fog light side and the female plug on the car, just to make sure everything's connecting up properly and we don't get any dash lights for blown fog lights when our fog lights are not blown. And now I'm gonna go ahead and put this bulb back in. Again, you don't have to take the bulb and everything out like I did, but still it might be a good idea to clean everything up. I'm gonna slip the bulb back in there. This round plug goes on this little peg right here, and this plug goes on the back of the bulb. Pop that back on there, and then righty-tighty. That's all sealed up. And on my car, the plug was facing down towards the road. I'm not really sure what orientation it's supposed to be in, but I'm gonna put it back in the way it came out. In theory, it's my assumption that if water were to get inside of here, it'd be better to have it facing down so the water would have more of a tendency to come out of the plug rather than settle in there. But that's just me. Anyway, there's our new fog light. Looks brand spanking new. I'm really happy with that. And now let's go ahead and throw it in the car. Now assembly is just disassembly, but in reverse, obviously. But it is a little bit more difficult because things have more of a tendency to come apart than go back together. With that being said, we just want to make sure that we are working with this ambient temperature sensor up and over the fog light as we put it back in here. But we're gonna start by putting the lens up and in first and get that generally situated. And then we're gonna rotate it to bring the back up like this. And this is gonna let us get it totally up and in here seated. And our next step is gonna be to get that ball joint in there. And I've got it all lined up. I'm gonna pop it over and in. That's in there. And we're gonna rotate down like this. And that's brought everything into place. So now it's just a matter of putting these two screws back in. So I'm gonna get these started by hand. This is a little bit tricky. Then we take our 8mm, fish it up from behind. Again, just using our fingers to feel where everything is. Then we'll snug everything up. Again, doesn't have to be super tight. This isn't like structural. Then we'll do the same on this lower one. Alrighty, so that's both bolts in. Don't forget to take our ambient temperature sensor and feed it back up through here and pop that into that little socket. There you go. Then we'll take this plate, we'll go bottom in first, push the little button on the side, make sure that's flush, release the button. That feels like it grabbed, so that's all good. And last, but definitely not least, don't forget to plug your fog light back in. There we go. Make sure the prong's grabbed. That looks good. So that's this fog light replaced. I'm gonna go ahead and do the one on the other side and we'll take a look at the whole finished product. But yeah, it looks great. So here's the fog lights all done up. They look fantastic, they're crystal clear. Yeah, I'm loving it. Definitely way better than what we were working with before. And to give you a better idea what we're working with, we'll go ahead and turn them on real quick. There we go. They don't just look like weird orange blobs at the bottom of the car anymore. So all that being said, thank you for watching. Feel free to subscribe while you're here. Check out some of my other E34 videos. And again, remember to check out Bavarian steering wheels on Instagram. And until next time, catch you next video.